Hello, welcome to the Courageous Self-Care podcast. I'm your host, Christina Marlette. On this show, we talk about self-care that really transforms your life. It's not this vague idea of something you should do someday when you have more time. We get specific. And there are actually 12 foundational skill sets of courageous self-care that I've been working with for the last 3 years. And each of them will give you more energy. They will give you more, better relationships. You will feel more at home in your own body. It just touches on every area of your life. And for this kind of information, it's not really out there in the way that I like to present it. And so I feel like, and one of the tenets of courageous self-care is that we need to go beyond ourselves. We need to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness when we say, I don't know everything, I need some help. It's a sign of strength. And so that's why I love to be here for you as a guide to reveal to you what courageous self-care is all about. And I also love to have other guides on the show who align with the idea of courageous self-care. So today I have a guest, Simona Deckers, all the way from Germany. We're connecting Germany and Canada today. Simona, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you so much for having me here.
That is so cool that we can connect in this way, even though we live in totally different countries. I just love technology. Thank you, technology.
Yes, it's fantastic.
Simona, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you love to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm a success and leadership coach and mentor, and I support highly ambitious women to achieve even greater successes, but long-term and in a very healthy, sustainable way. It's not about chasing careers or money. It's finding your purpose, being fulfilled, and being happy from the inside out. And my coaching is mainly focused on transformational personal development. Of course, there are also business tactics and strategies, but the biggest part of my coaching is transformational coaching and self-development. And I'm also a yoga teacher and meditation teacher. And so a lot of this knowledge and wisdom goes into my coaching work as well.
I love that you're combining those two. They seem like really separate things, but with the yoga and the meditation along with the success and business coaching, but I feel like they can marry very well.
Yes, and they should. And what we see right now in Germany as a trend is that managers open up to mindfulness. They know that if they want to be successful in the long run, they need to do something else. They need to be looking for different sources. And so today spirituality in a very modern way comes into play, and I love this. I love this development. It's somewhat new because in the former decades that had never existed before, this marriage, this blend of spirituality or wisdom teachings and modern economics.
Right. I was reading an energy forecast a few months ago, and by Emmanuel Dager, who is phenomenal. And he said that what happened energetically and spiritually is that the divine masculine got severed from its divinity, which is why for the last hundreds, not thousands of years, the patriarchal society has been really separate from spirituality. But because the divine feminine is coming in so strongly now, the divine masculine is healing itself by reconnecting to the spirituality. So that's exactly what you're doing with your work.
Yes, it's a great blessing. And I see the benefits and the deep transformation that happens when people turn to this reconciliation of masculine and feminine energies.
It's a beautiful way of putting it. And I also loved how you said that the transformations that you help people go through, it's not about just the money and the career and moving up the ladder. It's sustainable. And I feel like self-care is such an important part of that, because if you're just going for these kind of artificial or empty goals, they don't satisfy you at an inner level, and they're definitely not sustainable.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what people are chasing. Is proven that it doesn't make people happy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to turn inside, and we have to develop ourselves, our emotional intelligence, our spirituality. We have to develop into all directions, and only then we can feel fulfillment. If we are fulfilled and developed on all levels as a holistic personality or
Mm-hmm.
person, let's say that way.
Yes. Oh gosh, I could talk about this stuff all day.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, I love it too.
So one thing I love to do on the show, Simona, is to have our guests, my guests, share a current favorite self-care practice. And one of the reasons I love to do that is because I say current, because sometimes we learn all of these different tools and skills, and then we feel like, oh my gosh, there is so much I need to do. I need to do my meditation. I need to do my yoga. I need to do this and this and this and this and this. You could spend your whole day just taking care of yourself. And that's not really practical. So it's important to notice what's serving you currently. And if it's if you no longer love it, then move on to another practice. So having said that, what's something you love to do that really nourishes you?
Yes, I have a self-care practice that I also teach my clients, or that I talk about a lot. And that is, I know that it doesn't seem new, and it doesn't seem revolutionary. And maybe I just ask you to listen to it with a new ear, or with a fresh mind. And that is sleep. Of course, I mean, we read it all over. I mean, sleep is so important. But when I was sleep deprived my entire life, I'm also, before being self-employed, I had jobs. I worked in the corporate world. And I had several burnouts or adrenal fatigues, and I had to recover from that. It was very difficult. And at a certain point, I knew I wasn't making sleep a priority. And what I would like to talk about today, my self-care practice, is to sleep within a certain rhythm, within circadian rhythm. When we turn to Ayurveda, and yoga also sources a lot of wisdom from Ayurveda practices, health practices. The Ayurveda practitioners, the Ayurveda doctors, they recommend go to bed by the latest at 10 and get up at 6. And it seems somehow arbitrary, go to bed at 10 and get up at 6. But it's not arbitrary. There's something in this time frame that gives more energy, that gives you more energy back than other time frames. And I tested it myself, and it's true. I mean, when I go to bed at these specific times, and I get up, I feel more rested than when I go to bed at 11 or 11:30 and get up at 7 or 7:30 or whatever. When the sun sets and when the birds go to sleep, that's a good time to go to sleep for humans as well. And getting up early is something that the sages and the wise people of all times always had recommended. Get up early when everything is quiet and peaceful. The holy hour, Brahma Muhurta is the Sanskrit word. Get up early. So there's something to it. It's not something that is just something that can be talked about. It's try it and see what it does to you. It makes a difference. It's something. It's an experience that I made myself. It's astonishing that that living in, with a certain rhythm, with with the natural rhythms, gives you more energy. I'm always searching for self-care practices that restore my energy levels, that restore my life force. So that, like a yoga class, you go to a yoga class and then you go out, get out of the yoga class, and you have more energy than before. And I am looking for practices that give me energy, that restore my life force, not only you call it self-care beyond chocolate and bubble baths.
Yeah.
That's grooming, a manicure or a massage, or rewarding yourself. And it's nice. We need this oxytocin producing rituals. What I'm looking for, what self-care for me is, it's restoring. The yoga teacher called it prana, this life force. The Chinese call it qi or ki. And I found it with certain sleep patterns and sleep rhythms. So that is what I wanted to talk about today. And go to bed early. I've recently read a study that when people go to bed early, rise early, and they don't have late dinners, it reduces the risk of having cancer by 40%.
Wow. That's
40%. That's significant. Yes. And it means that there's so much more life force that can combat any anomalies in the cells, and it restores cellular energy. It's something that I recommend for your audience and your women to try and to see what difference it makes. And also associated with this is slowing down. You cannot work until 8, go to bed at 9:30 or 10, and you need to slow down way longer before. And when you get up early, make sure you get nevertheless enough sleep. For instance, I know that certain top performers who are known for hitting the gym at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, they are in bed at 8 p.m. Yeah. So Mark Wahlberg, he's in bed every evening or every early evening at 7 p.m. And Tom Brady goes to bed at 8 p.m. or 8:30 p.m. And then they are up at 5 o'clock. So, and I also heard about Gabby Bernstein. She wraps up her work at 2 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon and gets up at 5. So, I mean, there's another rhythm, and maybe just try to flow into a new rhythm that gives you more energy. But make sure you get the sleep. Don't try to and get up early and don't get enough sleep. Nevertheless,
right.
That's not a good recipe.
Yeah, I feel like there's this weird thing that goes on with human beings and sleep in our current age, where we try to say, well, I only get 6 hours and look what I can do. Oh, well, I get 5 hours and look at what I can do. It's this weird competition of who can do the most with the least amount of rest. And that's not serving us at all.
I need sleep. I mean, I have been sleep deprived for decades, and I have worked way too much in the corporate world, and I don't want to do this today anymore on myself. I mean, I can't do this to myself. And
this makes such a huge difference. And it's something that's relatively simple.
It's simple, yes. And also studies have shown that when you have 1 hour sleep, when you sleep 1 hour longer, you're more happy. Feeling rested is such a good feeling, and women need more sleep than men. If for instance, I feel that I need to sleep 9 hours. I feel better with 9 hours. I mean, some people maybe feel great with 7 hours, but I still need the rest and the sleep. And maybe it's because I was so sleep deprived. I don't know if I still recuperate. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I need the sleep, and I give this luxury. I give this gift to myself that I really rest and sleep and make this a priority right now.
Mm-hmm. And I remember hearing from Brenda Burchard, if you're going to change things about the way that you sleep, you don't just try it for a day and say, oh, well, it didn't work. You need to try it for about 90 days to get the benefit. And especially if you've been sleep deprived, it's going to take that long to fill your tank again. So what you're recommending, I'm totally on board with it. I think that 10 to 6, I've heard it called get on the angel train, and the hours that you get before midnight are even more nourishing than you were going to bed at 12 and getting up at 9 or something.
Yeah.
There's just something magical about the time before midnight.
Yes, absolutely. And it's the scientists prove this right now, and it has been in the book of wisdom of the the Vedanta, the Indian wisdom teachings for centuries and thousands of years already. These sages knew that was the best time to restore energy. So without that it had ever been proven by science, it was in the yoga books for centuries.
Well, thank you for recommending that practice. And listeners, I encourage you, if you have been someone who's been trying to prove how little sleep you can function on, give this a try. You will, I know from personal experience too, I really value my sleep. And it makes a tremendous difference. Like, really, sleep affects everything, and every aspect of your life gets better when you're well rested.
Yes, that's so true.
So we're going to, in a moment, move on to hear your story of courage, Simona. Before we do that, we'll pause for a quick word from our sponsors, and we will be right back. Welcome back. We are getting into the juiciest part of the interview here. I love to hear guests' stories of courage. And one of the reasons why I incorporated these stories of courage into the show is because, well, first of all, I love to hear people's stories. We thrive on hearing each other's stories as human beings. It really helps us connect and feel belonging and understand people at a different level. And also because courage is such an important aspect of personal discovery. We absolutely need to be courageous if we want to grow into the next best version of ourselves. And courage it grows. It's like a muscle. If we don't use it, we will not have very much of it. But if we understand it and we hear these stories and we think, oh, well, I could do that, or hey, I've done that, maybe I am courageous, that spreads courage. And if we had a world of people who were constantly growing their courage, it would be so different from how it is now. So Simona, I would love to hear your story.
Yeah, so my story is that before being self-employed and building my own company and working as a yoga teacher and coach, I was employed. I was working in the corporate world. And I was working, my last position was, I was working in a very, very big corporation, huge global company. And there was a merger and acquisition going on with a even bigger global company, huge empires, and there were some misuses of working laws, and there was something that there was injustice that was going on from my boss against me, and I tried to get into discussion with her. I tried to set up mediation times. Nothing worked. Nothing really worked. It's unbearable. I can't live with this abuse, and I have to get to a result, or I have to do something. And in the end, I ended up looking for or searching advice with a lawyer, and he said, try this, try that. I tried everything I could, nothing worked. And then he said, you know what, the only way to get to talk to your boss and to talk to the executives is to file a lawsuit, because nothing had worked. And I said, oh my God, filing a lawsuit against that big company, these two global companies, that's impossible. But in the end, I did it. I filed that lawsuit to get into communication with my bosses, to force them to communicate with me and to see how we sort this situation out. And nothing helped, even with that first lawsuit. And some weeks went on, some months went on, and there were more abuses. And so I filed a second lawsuit. And after a while, abuses still went on, and it was always different situation, different breaches. And I filed a third lawsuit. So that was huge. I felt like David challenging Goliath. Yeah, I mean, they were giants, and who was I to file lawsuits against these big corporations? I mean, it seemed impossible. So that was huge. That was a huge step of courage to ask these people to talk to me instead of being intimidated or saying, well, it doesn't, what can I do? This is the way it is. I just leave for another country, for another company. Mm-hmm. And I didn't do that. And I said, no, there's injustice here. I want this situation to be sorted out. And after a while, I had these 3 lawsuits going on, and during all this time, I was still employed. And that was a horrible situation, because having a lawsuit against your employer and at the same time being employed there was not a nice situation. And then my lawyer said, you know what? There is something that's missing in this company. They don't have a works council. And so my actually 4th step of courage was that I was at that point, I was already an outlaw. I had no status. I had no job. I had no job description. I was somehow nobody. And I stepped in front of my colleagues and I said, I would like to represent you in a works council. I would like to be your chairwoman, your director in the board, in the works council, to represent you and your working situation. And that was massive. That demanded massive courage, because I was there like this small little employee who was taken out of her responsibilities, who had her intern becoming her boss. I mean, she was promoted as my boss just to intimidate me and as a very demeaning behavior towards me. And I said, let's start a works council. And that was massive, and that felt huge. And those were huge steps of courage. And it somehow shaped me. And I was never under hypnosis or in trance about a work situation. I never identified or attached too much to status or salary or whatever. But these steps of courage gave me a tremendous freedom, because it opened the world to me. I mean, to what's possible.
That's incredible. Wow. Thank you for sharing that story.
It's an incredible story.
Yes. So I'm curious about the moment or the time in between your lawyer suggesting a lawsuit and you saying that's impossible to actually filing that, like taking that first massive step. What had to happen for you in between those 2 moments?
Yeah. I think that the executives and my bosses and the company's lawyers, they thought, she's a smart, ambitious woman. She will move on, because I was somehow placed in the attic doing nothing, or just very invaluable work. She will move quickly towards another company or another employer. And I said to myself, no, I can't go to another employer, because there are so many people to whom this thing is happening. And I'm in the position to fight now, or to repair this injustice. I had a legal insurance. I was financially very stable. I didn't have small children at home, and I said, I will do this. I will do this for all the people who couldn't do it, who couldn't fight for their right, who couldn't speak up. And I will state an example. And I want this to be to be woven into the collective. This step, this courage. I want this to be part for everyone. I want everyone to benefit from it at some level. And that was my motivation. That was what was leading me forward, and that was the reason why I said to my life, yes, I will do this. We have to address this injustice. I can't just walk away like a beaten dog, or just do as if nothing had happened. I can't do that.
And that's something that's so important to understand about courage, is that there needs to be something on the other side between you and the fear of what you are envisioning, what you are being drawn towards, what you're magnetized to. And so you had this vision of being able to not only stand up for yourself and create boundaries, but also for it to impact the people who weren't in the position or didn't have the courage at that moment to stand up for themselves. And
exactly.
and knowing that with your mind allows your heart to propel you forward. And so that's a beautiful example of how courage works.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so powerful. Very, very inspiring.
Yeah, that was my motivation at that time, all the way along. That it one day, hopefully, it empowers others,
right?
And will bring advantages to others. Yeah. That it won't happen anymore. And today it can't happen anymore, because that Works Council was established, and certain things from a legal point of view are not possible anymore.
Wow, look at you changing the rules. That's amazing. So Simona, I'm sure people are going to be curious of getting in contact with you, learning more about you. How can they find you online? Because you don't work with people in Frankfurt, I'm sure.
Yeah. You can find me on my website, shanticompany.com. It's SHANTI and then company.com. And there's a whole section. It's called For You, and you can you can find articles. I also have a blog, but for you, there are downloadable meditations, and you can find resources there on my website, and also on Instagram. There's a link where you can be redirected to my pages.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing your self-care practices and your story of courage, Simona, and most importantly, sharing of yourself and your wisdom and your energy. I can feel it through the computer. I'm sure our listeners can feel it through whatever device they're listening to. And that was just totally inspirational. I'm so glad that we had the opportunity for you to share that story. It's incredibly powerful. Everyone loves a good David and Goliath story.
Well, Christina, thank you so much. Thank you for your generosity and for the great work that you're doing, because it's so important to support people with self-care and giving them the tools and the strength to have a great life.
Oh, well, thank you. And listeners, thank you for listening. I know you're tuning in from all over the world. So many countries are coming together in this aspect of courageous self-care, and that feels so, it just feels so nourishing and hopeful. I feel like we're getting closer. I'm getting closer to this vision I have of women in particular, but for everyone. I know men need a lot of self-care too, and we're just paving the way so that men can figure it out and follow in our footsteps, because we're the women in the world are tasked right now with walking the path first and then showing how it's done. And I just have this vision of a world where, yes, we are courageous. We know ourselves. We share our gifts. We're very clear on them. And when two people come together in clarity around what their gifts and talents and wisdom and experience are, we can create so much good rather than when two people come together and they downplay their gifts or they don't even know them at all, and they keep them hidden. That's not the world I want. I want the world where we come together and create magic. That's just what I envision, and I know that courageous self-care is a path that can get us there. So thank you so much for listening. You can give yourself a big imaginary gold star and mark this off as some courageous self-care today. Simona, thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much, Christina.
All right, and thank you for listening. The show is on usually twice a week. I invite you to come back and listen again. And if you enjoyed this episode, whatever platform you're listening to it on, maybe leave a comment or write a review or share it with a friend. And that will help us get the message out to even more people about how powerful courageous self-care is. Thank you for listening. I look forward to connecting with you again next time. Bye-bye for now.